Hello, my name is Michael, and I obsess. I come across something that grabs me and I consume until I can't take anymore, and then I'm on to the next. Some obsessions last a week, others a lifetime. It is my intention to explore these obsessions with you as they occur while the passion is hot. Welcome to Eclectic Obsessions.
Some people who don't worry about dandruff ought to. Pam, for instance. Good-looking girl. Until you looked close. Dandruff. Never occurred to her that behind her back people were thinking, dandruff. Of course, some people just can't hide their thoughts.
Look, Mommy. That lady has dandruff.
Dandruff? Me?
Pam got the word. Started using Head & Shoulders, the most effective dandruff shampoo you can buy. Had everything her other shampoo had, too. Nice lather, nice smell, beautiful way of handling hair. Pam just made Head & Shoulders her regular shampoo. And, of course, it really worked on her dandruff. You can imagine what he's thinking now. Pretty hair. Head & Shoulders. Maybe you ought to think about it.
And Lot's wife, of course, was told not to look back where all those people in their homes had been. But she did look back, and I love her for that because it was so human. So she was turned into a pillar of salt. So it goes. People aren't supposed to look back. I'm certainly not going to do it anymore. That was a passage from Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, or The Children's Crusade, A Duty Dance with Death. It was the author's first bestseller, staying on the New York Times list for 16 weeks, peaking at number 4 in 1969. People aren't supposed to look back, but that's exactly what we're going to do. I was born in 1969, and in high school I became obsessed with that year. Its events, film, books, and music. Together we are going to explore some of the things that made it such a pivotal time in human history. This week on Eclectic Obsessions. We find ourselves rich in goods but ragged in spirit, reaching with magnificent precision for the moon but failing into raucous discord on earth. We are caught in war, wanting peace. We are torn by division, wanting unity. We see around us empty lives, wanting fulfillment. We see tasks that need doing, waiting for hands to do them. To a crisis of the spirit, we need an answer of the spirit. And to find that answer, we need only look within ourselves. When we listen to the better angels of our nature, we find that they celebrate the simple things, the basic things, such as goodness, decency, love, kindness. Greatness comes in simple trappings. The simple things are the ones most needed today if we are to surmount what divides us and cement what unites us. To lower our voices would be a simple thing. That was a section of President Nixon's inaugural speech, and it speaks of the promise that 1969 held for America and the world, a promise that was only partially achieved. In 1969, the world population topped 3.6 billion. Richard Milhous Nixon was inaugurated as the 37th President of the United States. The Vietnam conflict and the corresponding anti-war movement both escalated greatly, with the selective service system of the United States reinstituting the draft lottery. Apollo 11 was the spaceflight that landed the first people on the moon. The Stonewall riots in Greenwich Village, New York, ignited the gay rights movement. The microprocessor is invented. The Tate LaBianca murders are committed by members of the Charles Manson family. The first communications are sent through the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, or ARPANET, the first system to utilize packet switching and the protocol suite TCP/IP, the two technologies that became the technical foundation of the Internet. The U.S. Air Force closed its Project Blue Book, concluding that there was no evidence of UFOs. The Public Broadcasting Service, or PBS, was established. The first Concorde test flight is conducted in France. The average cost of a new house was $15,550. The average cost of a new car was $3,270, a gallon of gas was 35 cents, and the Beatles were still together.
Mamma mia, that's some species.
Cut spicy meatballs, Jack. Sorry. Take 28. Out, Tony, and action.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
Cut. What was the matter with that? The accent. Cut. Cut.
Micey, micey, ballsy, ballsy.
Cut. Take 59. And action. Jack.
Sometimes you eat more than you should. And when it's spicy besides, Mamma Mia, do you need Alka-Seltzer? Alka-Seltzer can help unstuff you, relieve the acid indigestion, and help make you your old self again.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
Cut. Okay. Let's break for lunch.
The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. That was a section of Maya Angelou's poem, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, written in 1983 with a title from her 1969 autobiography. Books released in 1969 included Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, The Peter Principle by Peter Lawrence and Raymond Hull, The Godfather by Mario Puzo, The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton, The French Lieutenant's Woman by John Fowles, Portnoy's Complaint by Philip Roth, and Sylvester and the Magic Pebble by William Steig. Magazines established in 1969 included Cream, Family Health, Harvard Political Review, Interview, and National Lampoon.
Contact light, engine arm on.
We're home.
Man on the moon.
Houston,
Oh, jeez.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
Ooh. Oh, boy.
Thank you.
Boy.
Okay, we're going to be busy for a minute.
There's that foot going down.
There he is. There's a foot coming down the steps. Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon. On this July 20th, 1969.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
No, one small step for man, but I didn't get the second phrase. His quote was, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
There you go.
Welcome home.
And now we have 2 Americans on the moon.
Beautiful view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation.
They're taking the cover off of the stainless steel plaque. Mounted on one leg
there.
there.
If you haven't read the plaque, we'll read the plaque that's on the front landing gear of this lamb. It says, "Dear men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace for all mankind."
There it is, a U.S. flag on the surface of the moon.
Yes, indeed. Beautiful, just beautiful.
That flag is on a frame. There is no wind to hold it out like that, of course. It's a 3x5 flag, and it's got a frame of its own to hold it out.
Neil and Buzz, the President of the United States is in his office now and would like to say a few words to you. Over. Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The first tourists on the moon. From their description, it sounds like someplace we might want to go after all. Aldrin called it magnificent desolation, Armstrong's stark beauty all its own. Well, for thousands of years now, it's been man's dream to walk on the moon. Right now, after seeing it happen, knowing that it happened, it still seems like a dream. And it is, I guess, a dream come true.
People of note born in 1969 were Vern Troyer, Morris Chestnut, Marilyn Manson, Norman Reedus, Jason Bateman, Ken Griffey Jr., Dave Grohl, Naveen Andrews, Bobby Brown, Mary McCormack, Jennifer Aniston, Javier Bardem, Graham Coxon, Judah Friedlander, Paul Rudd, Renee Zellweger, Wes Anderson, Kate Blanchett, Anne Heche, Laverne Cox, Peter Dinklage, Steffi Graf, Ice Cube, Tachina Arnold, Ken Jeong, Jennifer Lopez, Brett Favre, Josh Holloway, Ben Chaplin, Edward Norton, Christian Slater, Matthew Perry, Jack Black, Jason Priestley, Angie Everhart, Rachel Hunter, Tyler Perry, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Zach Galifianakis, Gwen Stefani, P.J. Harvey, Stephen Moyer, Nancy Kerrigan, Wyclef Jean, Spike Jones, Ben Harper, Puff Daddy, Matthew McConaughey, Ellen Pompeo, Jay-Z, and Christy Swanson.
I'm Colonel Harold Sanders, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Hey, you two coming?
You go ahead, honey. I want to talk to these folks a little bit longer. And now, I said Kentucky Fried Chicken. There's only one way to cook Colonel Sanders Kentucky Fried Chicken, and that's my way. We always use plump, young broilers, always fresh, never frozen chicken. It's cut in pieces, and each piece is dipped in milk and egg wash, then into seasoned flour, in which we have the 11 different spices and herbs for flavor. One more thing, folks. It's the only way that you're going to get chicken that is finger-licking good. And I'd be mighty proud to have you try Colonel Sanders Kentucky Fried Chicken. Mighty proud. Excuse me a moment, will you please? Hey, look at there. Didn't I tell you it was finger-licking good?
Kentucky Fried Chicken. If you want Kentucky Fried Chicken, you have to visit me.
What happened at White Lake this weekend may have been more than an uncontrolled outpouring of hip young people, struggling as they did to survive. First, the 20-mile traffic jams and 5-mile hikes, then the intense heat and sudden rain, the thirst and hunger from the shortage of water and food, just for the opportunity to spend a few days in the country getting stoned on their drugs and grooving on the music. What happened at White Lake was that hundreds of thousands of kids invaded a rural resort area totally unprepared to accommodate them, among adults who resent and reject their youthful style of life, and that somehow, by nature of old-fashioned kindness and caring, both groups came together in harmony and good humor, and all of them learned from the experience. For adults who were there, it was a revelation in human understanding. They had not been aware, as the kids are, of the gentle nature of young people to one another. These long-haired, mostly white kids in their blue jeans and sandals were no wide-eyed anarchists looking for trouble. Despite the overt appeals for violence by the few political radicals among the crowd, they remained polite, passive, and finally, as the area was saturated, helpless. At that point, the residents of the area, learning of the emergency, began to respond. Housewives handed out hot coffee to stranded youngsters who had not eaten in days. Catholic nuns passed around sandwiches made by Jewish mothers. And the police, many of them from the violent precincts of New York City, invoked the law of practicality and allowed the kids the freedom to take their drugs in public. So many people were smoking pot, the police explained, there were not enough jails to hold them. A situation to remind an older generation of conditions 35 years ago under which alcohol was legalized. So that what was learned at White Lake was not that hundreds of thousands of people can paralyze an area and break the law, but that in an emergency at least, people of all ages are capable of compassion. And while such a spectacle may never happen again, it has recorded the growing proportions of this youthful culture in the mind of adult America.
Listening to you, I get the music. Gazing at you, I get the heat. Following you, I climb the mountain. I get excitement at your feet. Right behind you, I see the millions. On you, I see the glory. From you, I get opinions. From you, I get the story. That was the finale of Tommy by The Who. The Woodstock Music and Art Festival, held on August 15th through 18th, attracted an audience of more than 400,000. Performers included Richie Havens, Ravi Shankar, Arlo Guthrie, Joan Baez, Santana, John Sebastian, Canned Heat, Mountain, The Grateful Dead, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Janis Joplin, Sly and the Family Stone, The Who, Jefferson Airplane, Joe Cocker, Country Joe and the Fish, 10 Years After, The Band, Johnny Winter, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Paul Butterfield Blues Band, Sha Na Na, and Jimi Hendrix. It is widely regarded as a pivotal moment in popular music history, as well as the definitive nexus for the larger counterculture generation. By contrast, the Altamont Free Concert, featuring Santana, the Jefferson Airplane, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, with the Rolling Stones headlining the show, was marred by violence, including the beating of Jefferson Airplane singer Marty Balin and the stabbing death of concertgoer Meredith Hunter. Altamont came to be viewed as the end of the hippie era and the de facto conclusion of late 1960s American youth culture. Seminal albums were released this year: Abbey Road by the Beatles, Let It Bleed by the Rolling Stones, Tommy by The Who, Led Zeppelin's debut album, Crosby, Stills and Nash's debut album, Santana's debut album, In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson, Nashville Skyline by Bob Dylan, Bitches Brew by Miles Davis, the Allman Brothers debut album, Dusty in Memphis by Dusty Springfield, Oxomoxoa by the Grateful Dead, Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere by Neil Young and Crazy Horse, Hot Rats by Frank Zappa, Green River by Creedence Clearwater Revival, and Volunteers by Jefferson Airplane. Notable deaths in 1969 include Sharon Tate, Judy Garland, Boris Karloff, Leo Gorcey, George Gabby Hayes, Howard McNear, Josef von Sternberg, Jay Sebring, Sonia Henney, Brian Jones, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Jack Kerouac, Rocky Marciano, Coleman Hawkins, Mayor Baba, Vito Genovese, John Cipollini, Shorty Long, Mary Jo Kopechne, Abigail Folger, Ho Chi Minh, Josh White, Joseph P. Kennedy, Ted Heath, Magic Sam, Fred Hampton, Conrad Hilton Jr., and Don Drummond.
Mr. Cow.
Yes?
How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
I don't know. I always end up biting. Ask Mr. Fox, for he's much cleverer than I.
Mr. Fox, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
Why don't you ask Mr. Turtle, for he's been around a lot longer than I. Me, I bite.
Mr. Turtle, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
Honey, he's never made it without biting. Ask Mr. Owl, for he is the wisest of us all.
Mr. Owl, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
A good question. Let's find out. 1, 2, 3.
How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know.
The networks have made important contributions to the national knowledge. Through news, documentaries, and specials, they have often used their power constructively and creatively to awaken the public conscience to critical problems. They have done what no other medium could have done in terms of dramatizing the horrors of war. The networks have tackled our most difficult social problems with a directness and immediacy that is the gift of their medium. That was an excerpt from a speech given by Vice President Spiro Agnew on the power of television. Television programs debuting in 1969 included The Johnny Cash Show, Hee Haw, H.R. Pufnstuf, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, The Archie Comedy Hour, Room 222, The Courtship of Eddie's Father, Marcus Welby, M.D., Medical Center, The Brady Bunch, Love American Style, Monty Python's Flying Circus, Night Gallery, Sesame Street, and The Benny Hill Show. Shows that ended this year were Wacky Races, The Saint, Gomer Pyle USMC, Do Not Adjust Your Set, The Avengers, Peyton Place, Star Trek, The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, Match Game, and The Banana Splits Adventure Hour. Golden Globe Award winners were for Best Actor in a Drama Series Mike Connors for Mannix, Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy Series Dan Daly for The Governor and JJ, Best Actress in a Drama Series Linda Crystal for The High Chaparral. Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy Series was a tie between Carol Burnett for The Carol Burnett Show and Julie Summers for The Governor and JJ.
Here's the story of a lovely lady who was bringing up three very lovely girls. All of them had hair of gold, like their mother, the youngest one in curl.
H.R. Pufnstuf, who's your friend when things get rough? H.R. Pufnstuf, can't do a little 'cause he can't do enough.
Frosty the Snowman was a jolly happy soul, with a corncob pipe and a button nose and two eyes made out of coal.
Of American style, truer than the red, white, and blue. Of American style, that's me and you. Tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me till the end of people. Let me tell you about my best friend. He's a one-boy cuddly toy, my up, my down, my right.
Wonderful, wonderful, to be free and alive everywhere that you go, is to wear what you dare anywhere and to travel with flair. You care about the shape you're in, so does he, so does he. Wonderful, wonderful, wonder-bra.
What greater satisfaction can a filmmaker have to know that a given scene that he's devised on the same evening in Tokyo, West Berlin, New York, and London, the audience are all reacting in the same way? That's the power of the cinema. Theater doesn't have it. Literature doesn't get the chance to have it. But we are able, by the manner of copying films and placing them in movie houses throughout the world, to do that. That is the greatest satisfaction one can have. That was an excerpt from an interview with Alfred Hitchcock for the National Film Theater in 1969. The top-grossing films of 1969 included Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Midnight Cowboy, Easy Rider, Hello Dolly, Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, Paint Your Wagon, True Grit, Cactus Flower, Goodbye Columbus, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I Am Curious Yellow, They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, A Boy Named Charlie Brown, The Wild Bunch, Sweet Charity, The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, Where Eagles Dare, Alice's Restaurant, Take the Money and Run, Topaz, and Once Upon a Time in the West. Midnight Cowboy became the first, and so far the only, X-rated film to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. Best Director went to John Schlesinger for Midnight Cowboy. Best Actor went to John Wayne in True Grit as Rooster Cogburn. Best Actress went to Maggie Smith in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie as Jean Brodie.
I'm Joe Buck from Texas.
Enrico Rizzo from the Bronx.
And I'm gonna buy you a drink. What the hell do you think of that?
I don't mind if I do.
Why do you think I come all the way up here from Texas for? Well, I'm a hustler. You didn't know that?
You were gonna ask me for money? Huh?
Will you get out of here?
You gotta get yourself some kind of management.
Only the echo. Hey, I'm walking here. I'm walking here.
Don't worry about that. Actually, that ain't a bad way to pick up insurance, you know. In New York, no rich lady with any class at all buys that cowboy crap anymore.
Women like me, goddammit. Hell, the only one thing I've ever been good for is loving.
Paul Newman is Butch Cassidy, and the Sundance Kid is Robert Redford. Catherine Ross is Etta Place.
Dynamite's ready, Butch.
Well, that ought to do it.
Think here's enough dynamite there, Butch?
Most of this is true, and all of it blazes with action. You've never met a pair like Butch and Sundance.
What is the Italian job?
A seating chaos, a smash and grab raid, and $4 million.
$4 million? I think we could take that over, Roger. Go. You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Good evening, Mr. Bridger.
Dolly Levi, you are a damned exasperating woman.
Why, Horace Vandergelder, that is the nicest thing you have ever said to me.
Out there's a world outside of Yonkers, way out there beyond this hick town, Barnaby. There's a slick town, Barnaby.
Put on your Sunday clothes when you feel down and out. Strut down the street and have your picture took. Dressed like a dream, your spirits seem to turn about.
Look like a bunch of refugees from a guerrilla love-in.
Oh, I just can't believe. What are they doing here?
I don't never know, but I don't think they'll make the parish line.
Hey, Lord, look at them goons. Hold on, Sam. We'll scare the hell out of them.
They're not scared of you. They're scared of what you represent to them. Amen. All we represent to them, man, is somebody who needs a haircut. Oh, no. What you represent to them is freedom. What the hell's wrong with freedom, man? That's what it's all about.
And now, Paramount Pictures presents the Hal Wallace production, True Grit. Starring John Wayne as Rooster Cogburn, the most colorful character he's ever played.
If I smelled as bad as you, I wouldn't live near people.
Kim Darby as Mattie Ross.
My God. She reminds me of me.
Glenn Campbell in his first big screen role.
A little earlier, I gave some thought to stealing a kiss from you, although you are very young. And you're unattractive to boot. But now I'm of a mind to give you 5 or 6 good licks with my belt.
If you think your girl's a good looker, take a good look at this guy's dolls.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
The new Bond. The different 007 on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Places, everybody. We're on the air in 5 seconds. Ready, Joni?
Ready.
Okay, action!
Hi. How do you like our new optional sunroof? It's just one of the many reasons Dodge Charger sales have soared over 40% this year. Why, no sooner do we get them in than... Well, sir, you can't take that car.
Keep talking. Go to the Charger RT.
Do you realize that Charger RT beat all other 60 entries to become the Union Pure Oil Acceleration Champ?
I say, would you mind awfully?
Sir, come back with that. Joni, use the one over there. It's a white hat special.
Charger White Hat Special. Specially equipped at a special low price. Why, it'll save you more than any other...
Hey, ma'am, that's right pretty. Think I'll take it.
What one?
Before they're all gone, better get your 69 Dodge Charger.
That one was mine.
Winning. That's the best thing about it. After that, it's feeling I'm the best of anybody at my job, and that's the most satisfying thought I could have about football. And then putting it all together and being on the best team and becoming world champions. That's what you have to strive for, to be the best. That was an excerpt from the 1969 Playboy interview with Joe Namath. In sports for 1969, the American Football League New York Jets upset the NFL's heavily favored Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III by a score of 16-7 after quarterback Joe Namath guaranteed a victory. The Kansas City Chiefs won 17-7 over the Oakland Raiders for the AFL Championship. The Minnesota Vikings won 27-7 over the Cleveland Browns for the NFL Championship. In baseball, the American League expands to 12 teams, adding the Kansas City Royals and Seattle Pilots, and the National League expands to 12 teams, adding the Montreal Expos and San Diego Padres. Due to expansion, Major League Baseball creates 4 divisions, with 2 in each league. On March 1st, Mickey Mantle of the New York Yankees announces his retirement. The New York Mets win 4-1 over the Baltimore Orioles in the World Series. In basketball, UCLA wins 92-72 over Purdue in the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship. The Boston Celtics won 4-3 over the Los Angeles Lakers in the NBA Finals. The Oakland Oaks defeat Indiana Pacers 4-1 in the ABA Finals.
And the 23-year dream of Andy Granatelli is now 3 left turns away. There goes Mario Andretti down the short chute.
And here's the checkered flag. Pat Badan holds it and waves it for Mario Andretti, winner of the 1969 500-mile race.
In his backup car, Mario Andretti and the STP team win by 2 minutes.
There's something about the magic of Indianapolis is there. I think it always was. And as I say, for any race driver that ever set foot there has that dream to cross that finish line first, see that checkered flag first. And when you see it, I'm telling you what, it's such a wonderful feeling.
The 2-1 pitch. There's a fly ball hit out to left. Waiting is Jones. The Mets are the world champions. Gary Koosman being mobbed. Look at this scene. He nearly tore this ballpark apart when the Mets clinched their division pennant against the Cardinals. Here's the Met locker room. The Mets had 5 runs, 7 hits, no errors. The Orioles 3 runs, 5 hits, 2 errors. Sport Magazine has declared Don Clendenon as the outstanding player of the series, and he wins himself a new Dodge. And it was a come-from-behind victory for the Mets today. They were trailing 3-0. The celebration of the new world champions of baseball, the New York Mets, the final score. New York, 5 runs, 7 hits, and no errors. Baltimore, 3 runs, 5 hits, and 2 errors.
Erickson sees Baylor all alone, but Russell makes the steal. The Celtics have the ball. Havlicek has it. Over to Larry Siegfried, who brings it down court. Back to Havlicek. Erickson taps the ball to Nelson, whose shot bounces straight up and then straight through. And Boston goes on to win 108-106. A thriller to the end as the miraculous Boston Celtics become the NBA champions for the 11th time in 13 years.
All the way. to be praised. All right, here's Unitas again. The pass to Richardson. He has the ball. The game is over. The New York Jets are the world champions. They have upset the Baltimore Colts and beat them handily here today. They not only defeated them, but held them. Here's Shula going over. They shut out the Jets, or the Colts, till the last 3 minutes and 19 seconds of the game. And Eubank putting his arms around Shula, who was one of his favorite players when Shula played for him. Eubank always said he'd be a great coach. There's the final score. The Jets beating the Baltimore Colts 16-7 gives the AFL the first Super Bowl championship. They said it would be years before they play a close game, and they almost shut out the Colts today. And one going away until Unitas rallied the Baltimore Colts.
Thank you for exploring a little of 1969 with me, and apologies for it being a bit listy. Obsessives like lists, what can I say?
What the wife selects on her console will be paid for by the husband at his counterpart console. All bills and transactions will be carried out electronically. A central bank computer will debit the family's account the amount of purchases and credit the department store, for example, informing the family's home computer at the same time. Father, at the touch of a button, receives an instantaneous printed copy of his budget, the amount of taxes he owes, the payments left on the car, and so forth. All documents and household records are available on the video screen for immediate reference. Also at his disposal is an electronic correspondence machine, or home post office, which allows for instant written communication between individuals anywhere in the world.
Thank you for listening to Eclectic Obsessions. If you've liked what you've heard, please subscribe. You can follow the show on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Eclectic Obsessions, on Twitter at eclecticobsess1, on Instagram at www.instagram.com/Eclectic Obsessions Podcast, and on YouTube at Eclectic Obsessions. I'd love to hear what you think. Feel free to email the show at ecobpod@gmail.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new Eclectic Obsession.